is Hope Warren. I'm the Strategic Communications Director at the South Carolina Office of Resilience. I'd like to welcome everyone here today. Um, Thank you for all the state and local officials we have here. Thank you for joining us and for your leadership. And with that, I'll hand it off to my boss, Ben Duncan, Chief Resilience Officer, to give us our welcome and introduction. Ben?
Thank you, Hope. Uh, First of all, I want to thank our friends and partners and colleagues who've joined us here today. Uh, I am Ben Duncan, Chief Resilience Officer for the state. Uh, there's a long list of people who have been a part of this and who have joined us here today to make this land acquisition possible. You will hear from several key partners and friends this morning. Uh, there are many more in the audience, and we want to thank you all for being here. First, you will hear from the governor, Governor Henry McMaster, who has shown great leadership, great commitment in conservation, along with the leadership and commitment with a great push towards conservation. Uh, he's been the number one leader for conservation in the state. You will hear from our conservation partners, Open Space Institute, the South Carolina Conservation Bank, Florence County, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, who will be the future stewards of this land, along with a partnership with Francis Marion University for scientific research, historical research, and cultural research. And we're glad to have them as one of our partners. You will also hear from Manulife. That's the company that made this possible for us to be able to own Snows Island, and we want to thank them. But those are not the only primary partners who've been a part of this. Several other groups also have contributed to making this possible. Ms. Dollar Moore and the Dollar Moore Foundation, and she's here this morning. If you would just raise your hand, Mrs. Moore. Thank you. Also, we have with us as part of this uh, conservation effort, the Neblock Family Foundation, the Low Country Trust Fund, Weyerhaeuser, and Sunoco. But I want to tell a quick story right quick, and I won't be long. When all this got started, I received a telephone call, and it didn't have a caller ID on it, and I answered it, and the caller said, "Ben, this is Dollar Moore. I understand," and at first I said, "Oh, somebody's pranking me," and I just said yes. And but from the command in her voice, I knew this was Miss Dollar Moore. So I quickly went from yes to yes, ma'am. So she's been a special part of this from the very beginning. Uh, the other great partners of this has already been mentioned, but we're happy to have each and every one of our partners here today. Uh, we are protecting the wetlands, and we all know what wetlands, the importance of wetlands. When there's a flood, it holds the water, it stores it, it releases it slowly into our rivers and streams. So we have to understand more than the historical value, which is great, with Francis Marion Side Out, but it also saves the lives and protects property of thousands and thousands of people in this state. So we want to thank all of you who have been a part of this. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Hope Warren.
All right, thank you, Ben. We're going to start our list of speakers here first with OSI. So OSI acquired the Snows Island assemblage earlier this year. To give us more information about the property and its value, we have Dr. Mariah Whitehead, the Senior Vice President of Land for the Southeast and a Florence County native. Mariah.
Thank you, Hope, and thank you everyone for coming out on this beautiful day to celebrate such an incredible project. And I'm going to echo some of what you've already heard, but for those of us who do conservation work, we all know it's a privilege. But every now and then, a project shows up that's so unique and inspiring that it gives us a moment to really reflect on the outcomes. And for me, and many of us here, I think the Snows Island project represents just that. Such an incredible, iconic part of South Carolina. It took so many partners coming together to make this possible. Um, I often say that there are three things that account for South Carolina's success in conservation. One is that we have intact natural resources worthy of protection. Not every state can claim that. Right here, we're looking at a 7,600-acre property between two acquisitions, 60 miles of river frontage, endangered species, wilderness quality habitat at the confluence of two scenic rivers in South Carolina. Incredible, intact natural resources worthy of protection. We have a population, residents in South Carolina that are connected to land. It's part of who we are. A lot of us are only one generation away from being connected to our family place or a family farm. Um, that connection brings an additional understanding about the value of land. And this is something that Governor McMaster has brought to our state, and that Darla Moore has brought to conservation. A connection to the land and understanding of the value, the intrinsic value, and the economic value of protecting natural resources. But our third element that we have, and maybe our secret sauce, is a collaborative culture in our conservation community. We know how to work together to get this done. And y'all, I get to work in other states with my job with Open Space Institute, and other people haven't figured it out the way we have in South Carolina. We have visionary leaders like these three fellows on the front row that are leading their departments and know how to collaborate within the state. In addition to that, in this project alone, we have private funders that came to the table. Darla Moore Foundation that made an early purchase of the River Forks property possible. The Knobloch Foundation, who's fully centered on wildlife habitat and brought funding that could be left in the ground when OSI purchased the property. The Green South Foundation, a third private foundation that gives low interest loans and allowed us to close on the property. In addition to that, our state partners have developed an innovative way to bring funding to the table, and Ben Duncan and Raleigh West coordinated and collaborated and communicated and figured out how to get money from the Office of Resilience to the state bank to OSI and allow us to close on the property on a timeline that worked for everyone. So one of my favorite authors, Wendell Berry, talks about community in this way, and I think this represents the folks that have gathered here today, the community that we've assembled to get this sort of iconic work done in South Carolina. He says that community is the condition of knowing that a place is shared, and that those that share that place define and limit the possibilities. I am so excited to continue to work with the team that's assembled to protect this property, to define and limit the possibilities for Snows Island as we look forward. So thank you all, and thanks for being here to celebrate with us today.
Thank you, Mariah. As Mariah said, we have a great team and a great leader here in South Carolina. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Governor Henry McMaster.
Thank you. Thank you. Cousin Mariah I think said everything that I was thinking to say. I just have a few things left, but everything she said is 100% true, and I can prove it with figures. But a lot of times they say political folks don't always tell the truth. My wife Peggy, some of y'all knew my wife Peggy, picked her out myself. She's hard-headed. Anyway, she goes to a place called Pure Bar every morning, just about. And she reminds me the only three things always tell the truth. That's grandchildren, drunks, and yoga pants. But everything she just said was true. Let me just add a couple of things. I want to, Darla Moore, thank you. I don't know if Howard Koch is here. He played a part in this at the beginning. Manulife played a big part in this. But I think everybody here played a big part of it and been playing it for a long time. I guess the good news is what Mariah just says is I think we now finally have coalesced and have awakened and realized how important this is. And if you go back in our history, which our history in this state is the longest, deepest, most consequential history of any state in the country, and we need to understand that and celebrate it and assume the leadership role that is ours to have. It's very important. But we need to think about what are we going to look like in 100 years. I ask myself this question, what are we going to look like? And coming here, riding down the road, and we went past, it was Clawson, and there's the Hopewell Presbyterian Church, and they had one of those signs out in front, which, by the way, you can go to the Department of Archives and History, and we put that, all of those historical markers are now in a booklet, a book. It's thick, and it's indexed by each county and by each number, and you don't have to ride down the road and wonder what it said when you saw the name Lafayette on Highway 17. What happened there? Well, you never find out until you go look, but you can get that book and you can do it. I look forward to where we have a catalog, and maybe it's already in existence, of all the important places, which way the development is going, which way this is going, how much land do we need to preserve. Right now we have about, I think it's 20 and a half million acres of land. And I know how most of that is forested. That doesn't mean it's going to always be forested, but it is now. What we have is conserved some sort of easement, some sort of protection on 3 million. 3 million out of 20 million. I don't think that's nearly enough. Now, I don't know how much enough is, but I know that we can come up with the answer. My bet is it'd be somewhere at least 50%, at least. Because if it's not, then we won't see this anymore. We may see some of the old buildings. We've taken enough understanding to realize we must preserve those buildings to represent, so we can remember where we've been, where we came from, and how we go get to where we're going. But sometimes we overlook the land, overlook the water, overlook the wildlife. And just a couple of years ago, I read an article in the paper where the descendant of Philip Rhodes, who had given Pritchard's Island to the state in 1983, provided that they use it for research, no development, just research. And they built a building out, a house up on stilts, like a beach house, out on the beach, just back from the beach. It ended up, it was in the beach because the water was coming up. But the university had not taken care of it and done what they were supposed to do. So they were considering, the Rhodes family was considering taking it back because there's a reverter clause in the deed. Well, I read that and I thought, holy smokes, we got to do something. So we did. We got in touch with the family, promised to do what we had agreed to do originally. And I was down there just a couple of months ago at USC Beaufort, and you ought to see what they've got going on now. They have geniuses from all over the world and the state as well, and they studying everything that moves above and under the ground. They got all kind of detectors and cameras, and it is just a basket full, a cornucopia of research going on. And that's the same exact kind of thing we can do here, and Francis Marin's going to do it. Those are the kind of things that set us apart. And as Mariah said, if we communicate, collaborate, and cooperate, we can get this done better than anybody else. Did y'all know that 50% of the salt marsh on the East Coast is in Beaufort County? I didn't know that. That means something. That means we have some things that we can do, things we can learn. So I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be a part of this, and look forward to doing it more and more. I believe that, as Mariah said, I think we have awakened. We do understand. We can have great economic development and growth. We can have great educational excellence, and we can have great environmental conservation, preservation and the same for our history and all of the places and events that took place in this state. We can do it all at the same time, and each, of course, builds on the other. I mean, without all three, it won't happen. So I thank you for being here and look forward to taking the tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Next, we have Raleigh West, the Director of the South Carolina Conservation Bank.
Now, I don't know who put me on the agenda following Governor McMaster. Tough act to follow, sir. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. It's important that we celebrate these moments. I have a joke that I tell at these things, and it's that there's really two fun moments in the life of a conservationist. The first is when you get a property under contract. And I remember getting a call from Mariah saying, we got Snows Island under contract. I said, the Snows Island? The one from the books I read about Swamp Fox, that one? Yes, sir, that one. And that's a moment that's really fun and enjoyable. The next moment is when you close on the project and you say, God, we got it over the finish line. And everything else before, during, after is pretty miserable. It's tedious paperwork, it's appraisals, it's grant writing, it's challenging work. And I think it's so important that we come out today to celebrate and take a moment to reflect on why we do that work, because it is very important. I'm going to piggyback on Mariah. I think there's three critical ingredients to a successful conservation project. It's time, talent, and treasure. And all of these partners that are here today contributed some of each, but I thought I'd specifically take just a moment to thank the landowners for giving us the time. Manulife and Weyerhaeuser and certainly Sunoco who impressed upon the need to save this property. Y'all gave us the time. We do conservation, as Senator Campson says, by negotiation and compensation, not through regulation and condemnation. So we don't have control over the property. We have to work with our partner landowners, and we try to do the best we can to move as fast as we can, but government does not move as fast as the private sector. And if it weren't for the landowners giving us the time and the opportunity, we wouldn't be here today. I also want to thank Open Space Institute for the talents. Mariah is one of she just won some fancy award and national award. She's one of the best in the game in terms of putting conservation transactions together. Her team with Justin Park writing the grants. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you for your talents. And Director Boyles, for your leadership at Department of Natural Resources. Thank you for your talents and your staff. One of the challenging roadblocks to any conservation deal is finding a home place for it. You have to raise the money to buy it, but you also have to find a place to put it. And who's going to manage it? And it comes with costs and obligations and expectations. And there's no better partner than we have in the Department of Natural Resources to take these raw pieces of property and bring them into their finest form. And lastly, it takes treasure, money. We do real estate. It takes money to buy these properties. And I'm going to just briefly thank everyone, but Governor McMaster, thank you for your leadership on our issue. I know I speak on behalf of just the collective resource agencies when we say thank you for just making this a priority for the state. And it's so meaningful, and we're deeply grateful. Also thankful for the General Assembly. I've saw some members here in the House and Senate, but thank you for giving us the financial resources in our budgets to make these transactions possible. We couldn't do it without you. Office of Resilience, Ben, one of the best partners we have, and we've figured out how to cooperate together and make it work, and I think the two agencies work better because of that partnership. What's new here is perhaps a unique form is the philanthropic partners. And Ms. Moore, thank you for your contributions. And Green South and Knobloch, I think we have representatives here, and the Low Country Fund. It shows the importance of this property, that we're finding private money, not just relying on state partners to get it done. We also have Florence County here, and thank you. If every county put $2 million towards projects, it would effectively double the budget of the state. So thank you for your leadership. I think that is such a wonderful development, and I'm so thankful for it. And finally, the USDA and the Department of Interior, we have federal grants outstanding that are going to help make this a cost-effective acquisition for the state. We're thankful for your funding. And lastly, for the community partners, Francis Marion University, PD Land Trust, Ducks Unlimited. There's so many partners that came together to make this project possible. And to all of you, thank you for your time, talents, and treasure for making it so.
Thank you. Raleigh kind of already took what I was going to say. As he mentioned, the next step and important with any of these projects is to find the home for these properties. So with that, I'd like to welcome the Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Robert Boyles.
Thank you, Hope. Good morning, friends. What a fantastic day it is here in South Carolina. What a special time to be here in Florence County. Would y'all listen to the words of the famous General Francis Marion? To expect defeat is 9/10 defeat itself. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is best, I believe, to plan for all eventualities, then believe in success, and only cross the failure bridge if you come to it. Friends, what an amazing day to be here in South Carolina on the banks of this beautiful Blackwater River. This is an exceptionally rare opportunity for the Department of Natural Resources when we get to protect an area known for its cultural significance as well as its natural resources, both of which are exceedingly critically important on the same day. This, my friends, take a look around, is such a day. Culturally, Snow's Island, as we have referenced earlier, is the traditional camp of General Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, who during the fall of 1780 and into the spring of 1781 led guerrilla warfare against the British here in South Carolina. At the time, General Marion and his partisan warriors were alone in defending the eastern part of the state of South Carolina against the British during the American War for Independence. In and around this island, General Marion established an unknown number of camps and picket posts. Some of those camps, such as the camp at Dunham's Bluff, have been located by archaeologists. Others, most importantly, what should be a large camp on Snow's Island, remain hidden to us to this day. Just, Governors, you have referenced many times, as it was to the British nearly 250 years ago. That research is ongoing, friends. As a natural area, the property is strategically located at the confluence of the Lynches and the PD rivers, both designated as state scenic rivers, and it adds a corridor of conservation lands along both. The location of this tract makes an important investment for conservation to keep it from becoming developed or converted into non-timbered uses such as land mines or housing developments. Steep bluffs with limestone formations along the PD River are present on the property and may contain rare plant communities. The natural areas on these lands provide a diverse variety of habitats for a myriad of game and State Wildlife Action Plan priority wildlife and plant species. Friends, as many of you know, this is the 50th anniversary of the South Carolina Heritage Trust Program, and how appropriate it is that we mark this year celebrating the 50th year of the Heritage Trust Program and approaching the 250th anniversary of the war for our independence, that we mark the protection of such a unique and valuable property. Thankfully, this unique property now enters in the realm of long-term stewardship and preservation, and your Department of Natural Resources is honored and is humbled to be tasked with the awesome responsibilities of being long-term stewards. People who visit these unique properties will gain a better understanding of not only our history and who we are as a people culturally, but who we are as a people and how we relate to our natural resources. And if I had to guess, Governor, Mrs. Moore, friends, partners, conservationists, my crystal ball tells me that leaders 250 years from now will want to look back on this day and thank all of you all gathered here for this remarkable ceremony and what we commemorate. Governor, for your challenge of protecting the best of South Carolina on behalf of all of us in the conservation community. Dare I say, in fact, on behalf of all 5.3 million South Carolinians and the tens of millions of people who would love to be South Carolinians, I believe it is best that we plan for all eventualities and we believe in our success. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, you've heard from some of our nonprofit and our state partners. Next, I want to turn it over to one of our local partners, Florence County. So please welcome Jerry Yarbrough, the Florence County Councilman.
First, let me say thank you for everybody coming out today. And our chairman, William Schofield, would have loved to have been out here today. He's excited about this project, but he just couldn't make it, so he sent me instead. So I'm not near as superb as he is, but I'm going to do my very best. So July 16th, last summer, SC7 group came down here and they had a kayak tour. I'd never been to this area in any part of my life, but I got to come down here with a great group of people. And they helped me get on a kayak because I'm not much of a kayaker. And we floated down the river here, and I was just amazed at the beauty. But when you go a little bit further down here and you get into the swamp, and you get into the 80-foot, 100-foot cypress trees, just at the beauty that it has, it really takes your breath away. And if you know anything about South Carolina weather, in July it's rather warm. So when we got into that swamp, it was 10, 15 degrees cooler. So it made it all that much more beautiful on a July day. But it really was a adventurous day. It was one of the highlights of my summer. It really made my summer. We have Mr. Ben Ziegler from Florence County, and I listened to him talk a lot of history about Francis Marion and just how valuable this area is. So when Miss Maria and the group came and they talked about purchasing this, the only thing I could find wrong with it is it wasn't on my side of town. That was the only thing I couldn't find wrong with it. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about Florence County. And a year ago, we adapted a vision statement, a mission statement, and some value statements. And I want to tell you how this fits in today. On the value statements, we got service, and we serve others, and we give back. By participating in this joint effort and having the vision and funding clearly available, that's our service. That checks off on the first value statement that we have. Excellence, by protecting the natural resources in this beautiful region that we have. That's our excellence in the second value statement. Our humility, it's not about me, it's about we. This is about the future generations to come, and I don't think we all realize exactly what we are protecting for them. But I sure appreciate it, and I publicly want to thank all the partners from Florence County, Open Space Institute, South Carolina Office of Resiliency, South Carolina Conservation Bank, the governor and his office, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, Francis Marion University, Ms. Darla Moore and her foundation, Low Country Capacity Fund administered by the Low Country Land Trust, Weyerhaeuser Group, and Manulife. Thank you so much.
Right, finally, we have with us today a representative from Manulife, who previously owned Snows Island, who would like to say a few words and give a special commemorative gift. Tom, if you would like to join us.
Good day, everyone. Well, after 6 speakers, this is where you throw away your prepared notes because all the good things have been said. What comes to my mind, though, that I wanted to talk about here is stewardship and partnership. At the end of the day, as a forester, and my name's Tom Sarner. I'm the global head of timberland investments for Manulife Investment Management. I'm a forester by training, and I reflect back that in 1995, my first year as a forester, having the vision of what planting a tree would eventually do was really hard to fathom. Time, it matters a lot. Here we are 30 years later, and that forest that I planted and became the first steward of now is a mature forest. So we sit here today in Manulife with a vision and a ethos that good stewardship is good business. And what that means to us is that as the owner of 5.5 million acres around the world, we have some really special places on our land. And while we own them, we steward them. We take care of them. At the end of the day, we're not the perpetual forever owner of those lands. And so in this case, we have the opportunity to work with the future stewards of the land. And working with Open Space Institute, the governor's office, Darla Moore, countless people that are here and not here to make this a reality for South Carolina and the future of South Carolina. So I think this transaction, where we were the temporary owner and recognized from the previous owners and our stakeholders that this place is of special value to the citizens of South Carolina, both ecologically and historically, we're really proud to have been the selling partner in this transaction and what we believe is proof that good stewardship is good business. And with that, if I may, I'd like to present the governor with a photo, and if I can ask David Kimbrough to come up here as well, to commemorate this. Maybe we'll stand over here, Governor. If you'd like to be in the middle of David and I. Okay. There. And so I mentioned 500,000 acres have been part of our sensitive lands program, so this is the last, but I'm sorry, this is the most recent, but not the last sensitive land sale that we intend to conduct as a company and hopefully with the state of South Carolina. Congratulations, Governor.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Take care of that for you. That's for you in your office. And we have photos for all of the other partners that were instrumental here on the table, and we'll get those to you at the end. Thank you.
All right, with that concludes our program. I did want to mention that we'll take some questions here, and then in about 10 minutes from now, if anyone's interested in taking a tour of the properties, you can meet us over by the flagpole, and we'll be happy to take you on a short driving tour. Yeah, and if there's anyone, I know we have several state representatives, a senator, and some local officials here. If anyone else would like to say a few words, I'll open the mic to you now as well. Any questions from the media? Anyone? I think we're good. All right. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. We'll do some pictures if the speakers would and the partners would stay up here. We'll take some pictures with the water in the background and your pictures for Manulife there. Thank you.